Here's a great way to customize, and also again from efficiency standpoint, by defining your own brushes and shapes. Now this could be a variety of things, from a simple copyright brush that you want to put on all your images to actually taking your logo and bringing it into Photoshop as a way you can apply it very easily. So let's look at both options. I'm going to create a new document in Photoshop. And when you're making a brush, I would suggest making it considerably larger than you think you might need it, just to be safe. So I'm going to make it pretty darn large, although it only has to be in grayscale, because the brush we're going to define as a black and white brush, and then we can apply it in different colors. So I click OK. In fact, I think I might make it wider just to be sure. Click OK. Then I can take, for example, my type tool, and I'm just going to type copyright, and then enter my company name.com. I'm going to make this as big as I can for now till it looks the way that I want. I'm going to take this just while I'm at it, since I can, and just use this little baseline shift thing to line it up till I like the look of it. And of course, it can say anything. It can be any font you want. It can be anything you want. This could even be a scan. I'm using the type tool because it's quick and easy. And then at this point, all you need to do is define brush preset. Now before I do that, let me stress one thing. This works best if you do the brush in black on a white background. The way it's going to work is whatever's black will be in your brush, whatever's white will be transparent. So it doesn't matter that it's on a white background. That's got nothing to do with it at this point. I choose define brush preset. Don't worry that it looks horrible, because in an odd little interface quirk, the preview for your brush will always be a square, even though my brush is a long rectangle. So don't worry if it looks squished, because, well, it won't. We name our brush, click OK, and then we could actually close this document and save the changes, because it served its purpose, and the purpose of that was to allow me to define that brush. So now that brush is built into Photoshop. All I need to do now would be to take my paintbrush tool. In the brush picker, there's the brush that I just created. Again, it looks all squished and bad, but that's okay. You can already see it. So that's the size that I defined it at, was fairly large. I could use standard Photoshop brush commands like the left bracket key to make it smaller, or you could also, what I often do is just do this, make a new layer, put, let's say that we want the color to be the same as the screen, so we just pick that up, we click on there once, and it puts the brush in, as you can see, on its own layer. So at this point, I could use free transform to scale it smaller, rotate it, do whatever I want, because now it's just a separate layer. But what it means is that every time, instead of having to type in your copyright or copy and paste it from another document, now we have this brush built in. And later on in a separate lesson, we'll see how to safeguard these special presets that you've made using the preset manager. But the other option is to define a shape. Now a shape works best not only this way, but it works best if the shape starts out being vector, since that's the way the shape tool works. So an example of that would be to use Illustrator. So over here in Illustrator, I have my simple little logo. I've converted the text to outlines so that they're vector shapes as well. If you kept it as type, it wouldn't work. And I had to do some other things. For example, in order for this to appear correctly, this white first aid sign and the window are actually cutouts in Illustrator, because otherwise in Photoshop they wouldn't show up as anything. So I simply select everything in Illustrator, copy it, and switch back to Photoshop, and then I'm going to paste. And when I paste, I have various options. Now normally if I was just creating some artwork for a project, I would click Smart Object, but I'm specifically here turning this into a custom shape. So I click Shape Layer, click OK. Now it happens to come in using the foreground color I had before, but you can see it's looking pretty good. Don't be thrown off by the path around it. Makes it look a little hard to see what's going to look like, but you can see it's actually very nice. Now you have to turn this back on to be able to define it as a shape, so temporarily you'll get that odd kind of look there, but that's okay. You'll see what it looks like. Then I go to the Add menu, choose Define Custom Shape, call it something, and once again that has served its purpose. So now built into the custom shapes in Photoshop is my logo. So for any project I'm working on, I need my logo. All I do is go to my custom shape tool, pop up the picker. I've got mine set to be enormous so I can see everything. And there is the very last one I just made, that one right there. Turn off that weird style that I did earlier with showing the wonderful tool presets of Adobe gives us. But there's my shape. Then I decide, do I want it as a shape layer, as a path, or as fill pixels? Let's do this. Let's make a new layer. Now all I have to do is hold down the Shift key, click and drag to decide how big or small I want my logo, and there it is. It's done. This is now built into Photoshop, not just this document, but Photoshop itself. So every time I want to add a copyright or add a logo or anything else, it's there ready to go. And that's a pretty nice way to speed things up.